Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. At UFC Vegas 45, in the main event, Derrick Lewis knocked out Chris Daukaus in the very first round, and it was a great performance. He took very limited damage, and he stopped Chris Daukaus towards the end of the very first round. And after the fight ended, everyone is already asking, what's next for Derrick Lewis? So I figured I'd put a video together and give you the top three most logical next opponents for Derrick Lewis. And I'm going to go from 3 to 1, least likely to most likely based on what the UFC is probably going to do. And then I'm going to give you my personal preference on which fight I would like to see the most of these three possible fights. But honestly, they're all great fights. I mean, you can't go wrong. Derrick Lewis is always going to be in exciting fights just based on his style. And right now, he's won 5 out of his last 6 fights. So even though a lot of people are kind of critical of Derrick Lewis, especially after he got dominated by Ciryl Gane, there's still so many great matchups for him in the heavyweight division. And also, on top of that, the heavyweight division is not super deep. It's starting to get a little bit better, but it's not very deep. So Derrick Lewis could find himself on a very short path back to a title, depending on who's champion. So starting off with the first matchup, Derrick Lewis versus Stipe Miocic. Stipe has not fought since March of this year when he lost to Francis Ngannou via KO. I think it's about time for Stipe to get back in there. I think this is a great fight. If Stipe goes out there and beats Derrick Lewis, we can give Stipe a rematch with whoever, or not a rematch, depending on who wins at UFC 270 between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane. If Stipe goes out there and beats Derrick Lewis, I think just in terms of Stipe's resume, getting a big win over a high-ranked opponent in the heavyweight division, he could earn another shot at the heavyweight title. And if it's Francis Ngannou, it would be obviously the trilogy, honestly, not even a rematch. If it's Ciryl Gane, it's a fresh matchup. But imagine how much fun Derrick Lewis versus Stipe Miocic would be. Derrick Lewis always has that nuclear power, and his hands are so fast. And Stipe Miocic is known, he's super well-rounded. People think he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. But he went out there and got KO'd by Francis Ngannou. Now, obviously, Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou aren't the same fighter. Derrick Lewis has a win over Francis Ngannou. Not that really matters all that much in a potential Stipe Miocic matchup, but it's all about if Stipe Miocic can avoid that big right hand of Derrick Lewis. And if Miocic goes out there and can avoid the power of Derrick Lewis has a very similar style to Francis Ngannou, so it makes that Francis Ngannou potential trilogy a little bit more exciting, and I absolutely love that fight. So next on the list is an amazing fight, which I think a lot of people would really love this fight, and I think this could actually headline a pay-per-view. Not just headline a fight night, not just be co-main event on a big pay-per-view. I think this could headline a pay-per-view, and that is Derrick Lewis versus Jon Jones. I would love this fight. Jon Jones has not fought since UFC 247 versus Dominic Reyes. We've heard Jon Jones literally talk for years about moving up to heavyweight. We just heard him time and time again. Apparently he's bulking up right now. There's been talk of him in like a UFC heavyweight title shot. But honestly, at this point, I just want to see Jon Jones fight at heavyweight. I just want to see how he's going to do at heavyweight. And I think Derrick Lewis is an awesome first opponent. I mean, Derrick Lewis is not super well-rounded. Jon Jones is one of the most well-rounded fighters of all time. And I would love to see at heavyweight, can Jones avoid that big power of Derrick Lewis and out-grapple him, out-wrestle him, and eventually finish him? Or is it going to be something that goes to a decision? I don't know what that could be. I mean, that fight, just that matchup stylistically is so strange. Because again, I've said this about Derrick Lewis time and time again on the channel. Derrick Lewis defies all MMA logic. He's not that great anywhere. I mean, his timing, his speed, and his power are what gets him through fights. He doesn't have the best ground game at all. He doesn't have good takedown defense. He doesn't have great cardio, not great jiu-jitsu. But somehow, just because of that speed and power, he's able to go out there and flatline guys over and over and over again. And imagine the tension in a main event where you have Derrick Lewis across from Jon Jones. And imagine how many fans it would draw in, because there's people who just want to see Jones perform at heavyweight, but there's also plenty of people who want to see Jon Jones get knocked out. And who better to knock him out than Derrick Lewis, who just swings crazy, wild winging punches with absolutely nuclear power in both of his hands. And he has great kicks too. So I would love that matchup. I would love to see Jones tested at heavyweight before he got a title shot. Again, I would have no trouble with Jones coming right into a title shot. I don't know if that would happen now. It could still. But Jones said he is determined to fight at heavyweight in 2022. So let's see him fight Derrick Lewis. He gets a win there. He fights whoever's champion after that, whether it be Francis Ngannou or Ciryl Gane. So next on the list, and number one on the list, I think this fight is most likely the UFC will make next for Derrick Lewis. It just makes too much sense. Currently, this guy is ranked number 5, and that is Derrick Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. They fought back in 2018. Volkov just outclassed him for 2 3/4 rounds. And, at the end of that third round, Derrick Lewis somehow finds a way to land a punch and sleeps Alexander Volkov after an impressive performance for 14 minutes and 50 seconds. He does very, very well, but Derrick Lewis just finds a way to go out there and sleep Alexander Volkov. Volkov has since traded some wins and losses. He beat Greg Hardy, then lost to Curtis Blades, then he beat Walt Harris and Alistair Overeem, then he lost to Ciryl Gane, and most recently he fought at UFC 267 and got a win over Marcin Tybura. Not super impressive. He won by decision. It was a relatively boring fight, but Volkov is still a number 5 ranked guy in the heavyweight division, and I think that fight would have a fun storyline. It could be a headliner of a fight night. And I would love to see Volkov see if he can get his revenge on Derrick Lewis, or can Derrick Lewis go out there and sleep him yet again. I would love to see that matchup. I think it makes a lot of sense right now. Both guys on 1-fight winning streaks. Both guys a little bit far away from the title. But in the heavyweight division, you are never more than a couple wins away from a potential UFC heavyweight title shot. We still have to see what happens at UFC 270 between Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou. But Volkov goes out there and beats Derrick Lewis. He's arguably 1 win away from a title shot. He would need one more big win, but then he'd be on a 3-fight win streak in the heavyweight division, which is super shallow. I mean, look at the heavyweight division. You have Stipe Miocic at number 2. Ciryl Gane's fighting for the title at number 1. Derrick Lewis is number 3. Curtis Blades, number 4. Volkov, number 5. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, number 6. Chris Daukaus, number 7, just got KO'd by Derrick Lewis. And then number 8 is Shamil, who just got KO'd by Chris Daukaus not that long ago. And then number 9 is Marcin Tybura. You got Tom Aspinall kind of making his way up the ranks, but he says he wants a slow move up the ranks. So there's not a lot of guys at heavyweight. You really have the top 5 guys who can compete for a title. So not a lot of guys ready to fight for the heavyweight title. And I think Volkov with a win over Derrick Lewis. And why wouldn't Volkov want to take that fight? Derrick Lewis is super popular, and Derrick Lewis is a top heavyweight. He's currently ranked number 3. I think he'll stay there even after the win over Chris Daukaus. And I think it's a big fight for both guys. They both want to fight top-ranked guys. Derrick Lewis did say he doesn't want a 5-round fight. So maybe they put Derrick Lewis versus Alexander Volkov on a pay-per-view main card, maybe a co-main event or featured fight on the card, or maybe even an opener. I doubt that they would do that, but it's there. So my favorite fight out of the 3, and I want you guys to comment and let me know what's your favorite fight of these 3: Stipe Miocic, Jon Jones, and Alexander Volkov. My personal favorite fight out of all 3 of these is Stipe Miocic. I would just love to see the consensus UFC heavyweight GOAT in Stipe Miocic fight that weird style of Derrick Lewis where he's just constantly looking to take your head off. And it's one of those fights where if Stipe Miocic can go out there and beat Derrick Lewis, it gives us more hope that Stipe Miocic can go out there and win a potential trilogy fight against Francis Ngannou, because Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou have that very similar style where they just look to go out there, swing like crazy, and look to knock you out, land that knockout punch. But honestly, I love all 3 of these fights. I wouldn't mind seeing any of them. I'd be excited for all 3 of them. But I think the UFC probably books Derrick Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. Makes sense in the rankings, makes sense with a little bit of a storyline, and it just makes sense all the way around, where Jon Jones is probably going to hold out for a title shot, even if he has to wait till summer of 2022. Stipe Miocic is kind of in a weird spot right now where he only wants big fights. But I think Derrick Lewis is a relatively big fight for any of these guys. He's a very popular name in the sport. But we'll see what happens, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.